Captain Lisa Warren stood at the viewport of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon *, her eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that gleamed in the darkness of space. It had appeared suddenly at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago, and the whole world had been holding its breath ever since. "Are you ready, Captain?" asked Ben Wright, her second in command. His voice was steady, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "As ready as anyone can be for humanity's first meeting with aliens," Lisa replied. She straightened her uniform and checked her reflection in the polished surface of a nearby console. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue eyes were clear and focused despite her lack of sleep. The Horizon had been chosen for this historic mission because it was Earth's newest and most advanced vessel. Still, Lisa knew their ship must seem primitive to the beings who had crossed countless light years to reach them. "All crew to stations," she announced over the ship's comm system. "Prepare for diplomatic approach." On screens across Earth, billions of people watched as the Horizon moved closer to the alien vessel. News anchors spoke in hushed tones about the significance of this moment. In homes, schools, and public squares, humans gathered together, united by a mixture of hope and fear. What nobody on Earth knew was that the aliens had been watching them for centuries. The Galactic Council, a union of 27 advanced species, had long debated whether humans were ready for inclusion. Some argued that Earth was too violent, too divided. Others saw potential in the creative, adaptable species that had gone from horse-drawn carriages to space exploration in just a few generations. Inside the alien ship, High Ambassador Zix Tar of the Vreen prepared to meet the humans. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with iridescent blue skin and 4 upper limbs, Zix Tar had overseen first contact with 12 other species during their long life. "Remember the protocol," Zix Tar instructed the 6 other council representatives who would join the greeting party. "These humans are a young species. They must learn their place in the galactic order from the beginning." The Vreen diplomat adjusted their ceremonial robes and reviewed the standard first contact procedures. Every new species was expected to show proper deference, even awe, when meeting the ancient races of the Council. This established the correct hierarchy from the start and made the long process of bringing a primitive species into the galactic community much smoother. "Their shuttle approaches, High Ambassador," announced a technician. "Allow them to dock in Bay 7. Zix Tar replied. "Ensure the atmospheric conditions are adjusted to their requirements." As the human shuttle carefully maneuvered into the massive docking bay, Lisa felt her heart pounding. The responsibility weighed heavily on her shoulders. First impressions would shape humanity's relationship with these advanced beings for generations to come. "Remember," she told her small team of 5 diplomats and 2 security officers, "we follow the protocols exactly as planned. No unexpected moves, no unauthorized questions." Jack Miller nodded along with the others. He wasn't supposed to be here at all, just an assistant diplomat who had been added to the team at the last minute when Drew Carlson, the senior diplomat, had been rushed into emergency surgery for appendicitis. Jack felt out of his depth but tried not to show it. "Docking complete, Captain," reported the pilot. "External atmosphere reads as breathable, matching Earth normal." Lisa took a deep breath. "Open the hatch." As the door slid open, the human delegation got their first look at the beings who had crossed the stars to meet them. 7 tall, imposing aliens stood in formal array, their postures rigid with ceremonial importance. High Ambassador Zix Tar stepped forward, towering over the humans. The universal translation device the aliens had provided began to interpret the complex series of gestures and sounds the ambassador made. "We, the Galactic Council, acknowledge the presence of your species and offer our guidance to your developing world." The humans understood the unspoken message clearly. These beings considered themselves superior. Protocol said they should accept this position with gratitude. Nobody expected what would happen next. Jack Miller felt a trickle of sweat run down his back as the alien delegation stared at them. He was only here because of Drew's appendicitis. He had spent the last 3 days cramming on diplomatic protocols and alien etiquette, trying to prepare for a moment that no human had ever experienced before. The leader of the aliens had just finished a complex greeting that the translator had conveyed in simple terms, but the message was clear. We are superior, you are lesser. Jack noticed Captain Warren stiffen slightly at the tone, though her face remained professional. According to protocol, Senior Diplomat Olivia Foster should now step forward and make the formal response, a carefully worded statement acknowledging the aliens' greater experience while maintaining Earth's dignity. Olivia took a small step forward, document in hand. Then disaster struck. The tablet containing the prepared response flickered and went dark. Olivia tapped it frantically, but the screen remained black. Jack could see panic flash across her face. The silence stretched uncomfortably. The aliens began to shift, their iridescent skin changing colors slightly. The tall blue one at the front, Zixtar, if Jack remembered correctly, tilted their head in what seemed like confusion or disapproval. Jack had grown up in a small town in Ohio where his mother had drilled into him one simple rule. When you meet someone new, you look them in the eye, smile, and shake their hand firmly. First impressions matter. Jack. Without thinking, acting purely on the instincts his mother had instilled in him, Jack stepped forward. He moved past a startled Olivia and walked directly up to the alien leader. "Howdy," he said with a warm smile, extending his right hand. "Jack Miller, representing Earth. Pleasure to meet you folks." Captain Warren's eyes widened in horror. The security officers tensed. This was not the protocol. This was not the plan. The alien delegation froze. All 7 of the imposing beings stared at Jack's outstretched hand like it was a weapon. The massive hangar bay fell into complete silence. High Ambassador Zixtar could not believe what was happening. In 10,000 years of bringing new species into the galactic community, none had ever initiated physical contact with a council member during a first meeting. Touch was considered intimate, reserved for equals, and only after proper subordination had been established. Behind Zixtar, Council Representative Kivex of the Juraxian species made a small choking sound. Representative Mardix's fur stood on end, a sign of extreme shock among the Filiri. Jack stood there, still smiling, hand extended. He didn't know what else to do now, so he just kept his arm out, waiting. Zixtar stared at the outstretched hand. The translation matrix had quickly conveyed the meaning of the gesture, a handshake, a greeting between equals. The human wasn't bowing or showing any signs of being impressed by the council delegation's obvious superiority. He was acting as if they were meeting as peers. The standard protocol for such an offense was clear. The human should be firmly corrected, put in their place. This was a critical moment that would set the tone for all future interactions. Yet something about the human's open face and direct gaze gave Zixtar pause. In all their centuries of diplomatic work, they had never encountered such a straightforward approach. Slowly, feeling the weight of tradition and the shocked stares of the council representatives, Zixtar extended one of their 4 upper limbs. The gesture felt strange, almost forbidden. Jack grasped the alien's hand. It felt cool and smooth, almost like polished stone, and gave it a firm but not aggressive shake, just as his mother had taught him. What Jack didn't know was that the Vreen had touch telepathic abilities. The moment their hands connected, Zixtar received a flood of human emotions. Curiosity, excitement, nervousness, but surprisingly absent was fear or submission. Most shocking of all was the genuine goodwill and hope for friendship that radiated from the simple human. As they released the handshake, Jack stepped back, still smiling. "Looking forward to getting to know you better," he said, blissfully unaware of the galactic protocol he had just shattered. Behind Zixtar, Council Representative Mardix fainted dead away, collapsing in a fluffy heap on the hangar floor. The trip back to the human shuttle was tense and quiet. Captain Warren walked stiffly, her back straight as a rod. Once they were safely inside with the door closed, she turned to Jack. "What were you thinking?" she hissed. Her face was pale with anger and shock. Jack shrugged, looking confused by everyone's reaction. They seemed nervous. "I thought I'd break the ice." "Break the ice?" Olivia Foster's voice rose. "You violated every protocol we established. We were supposed to show respect and caution, not walk up and touch them." "My tablet crashed," she added, her voice smaller now. "I was trying to reset it." Jack looked around at the team's worried faces. "I just offered a handshake. It's polite where I come from." "We're not in Ohio anymore, Miller," Captain Morin said, rubbing her temples. "We have no idea what you just did or how they'll react." Meanwhile, aboard the council ship, an emergency meeting had been called. The 7 representatives sat in a circular chamber, all eyes on High Ambassador Zix Tar. "This is unprecedented," declared Kivex, the Juraxian representative. His scaled skin had turned a deep orange, a sign of distress. "They should be humbled, awed by our presence. Instead, they act as though we are peers." "The human touched you," said Xandi, the youngest council member. Her multiple eyes blinked rapidly in excitement. "What did you sense?" Zix Tar had been quiet since the encounter, their minds still processing the flood of emotions received from the human. "Curiosity," they finally said. "Excitement, nervousness, but no fear, no submission." Zix Tar paused. "And something else, a genuine desire for friendship, not alliance for protection or trade. Simply, friendship." "Impossible," snorted Elder Korin of the Talaxians. "They are barely space-capable. They must be taught their place in the proper order of things." "Perhaps," said Zix Tar slowly, "our understanding of the proper order needs reconsideration." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Unknown to either humans or the Council, footage of the handshake had already been transmitted across the galactic communication network at faster-than-light speeds. Ships, stations, and planets throughout Council space were watching the small human confidently offering physical equality to one of the oldest and most revered species in the galaxy. On the planet Parcel, 3 mining workers huddled around a small screen in their barracks. "Did you see how the human stood?" whispered Corvin, his antennae quivering. "As an equal." "No species has ever done that during first contact," replied Mazzy, her compound eyes fixed on the replay of Jack extending his hand. The Parcellians had been serving the Council for millennia, classified as a worker species. For generations, they had accepted their place. But now, watching a species even newer than theirs act without deference, something stirred in their collective consciousness. Back on the human shuttle, Captain Morin was in communication with Earth. "The situation is complicated," she explained to the United Earth Council displayed on her screen. "Miller broke protocol, but the aliens didn't respond negatively. They seemed shocked." "Did they threaten you?" asked President Alan Dawson, leaning forward in concern. "No, sir. They actually invited us to return tomorrow for formal talks." In the background, Jack sat alone, reviewing cultural information about the Council species on a tablet. He still didn't understand why everyone was so upset. His mother would have been proud of his firm handshake. What Jack didn't realize was that in that simple moment, he had changed the course of galactic history. The Vreen, like many ancient species, had grown accustomed to deference and hierarchy. In their long lives, they had forgotten what it felt like to meet someone new without preconceptions. That night, as the human delegation prepared for the next day's meeting, High Ambassador Zix Tar meditated in their private chambers. The touch memory of the human's emotions remained vivid, the complete absence of submission, the natural assumption of equality, and most strikingly, the simple, genuine goodwill. For the first time in centuries, Zix Tar questioned the Council's approach to new species. Perhaps there was something to learn from these humans after all. 2 weeks after the famous handshake, the human delegation had grown from the original team to include 20 specialists from Earth. They were now staying in quarters provided by the Council on their massive ship. Earth had sent their best diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts to join Captain Morin's team. Senior diplomat Samantha Gregory now led the diplomatic efforts. She was a tall woman with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Unlike the initial team, she had come fully prepared with knowledge about the Council, gathered from their own shared information. Jack Miller had expected to be sent home in disgrace. Instead, to his surprise, he was kept on the team as a cultural liaison. This was mostly because Ambassador Zix Tar had specifically requested his presence at all meetings. "They're offering us protected species status again," Samantha reported during the team's morning meeting. "Fifth time this week." Captain Morin frowned. "And that means what, exactly?" "It means they'd control our development, our expansion, our technology. For the next 500 years, Samantha explained. They'd guide us until they decide we're ready for full membership." "That's not going to work," said Jerry Collins, Earth's chief scientist. He pushed his glasses up his nose. "We've already seen their star maps. There are habitable planets within reach of our current technology. Our people will want to explore them." Jack, who had been quiet during most meetings, spoke up. "They keep using this word, unprecedented. I hear it every time I walk past their people. What exactly did I do that was so shocking?" Samantha looked at him with a mixture of exasperation and amusement. "According to our cultural team's analysis of the materials they've shared, no new species has ever treated the Council as equals during first contact. Ever. In thousands of years." "That's just weird," Jack said. "How can you have a conversation if you're busy bowing and scraping?" Across the ship, the Council was having its own heated debate. 27 representatives from different species were now present, all drawn by news of the unusual humans. "They refuse protected status," complained Elder Corin. "They demand immediate colonization rights to 3 systems. Their arrogance is boundless." "I would not call it arrogance," said Zix Tar thoughtfully. "They simply do not understand why they should be limited." "Because they are young. Primitive," shouted Representative Mardix, who had recovered from his fainting spell, but was still agitated whenever humans were discussed. Zandy, the youngest council member at only 200 years old, leaned forward. "But what if they have a point? What if our system of making species wait centuries before granting them full rights is outdated?" The chamber filled with gasps and angry murmurs. Meanwhile, across council space, the effects of the handshake continued to spread. On Parcel, a planet whose people had served the Council for 4,000 years, workers gathered in secret meetings. "The humans stand as equals," said Corvin to a crowd of fellow Parcellians. "Why have we accepted less for so long?" Similar questions were being asked on other worlds. 3 previously subservient species had already sent formal requests to the Council, asking for reclassification from developing to full member status. Back in the human quarters, Jack was walking to the dining area when he noticed a small Parcellian worker cleaning the hallway. The insect-like being had 4 arms and large compound eyes. It looked up as Jack passed. Jack smiled and extended his hand. "Hi there. I'm Jack Miller." The Parcellian stared at the offered hand, antennae quivering in shock. Then, slowly, it reached out one delicate arm. "I am Mazzy," she whispered, touching Jack's hand briefly before quickly returning to her work. Jack continued to the dining area, thinking nothing of the encounter. He didn't see Mazzy rush to a communication terminal as soon as he was out of sight. That evening, a message spread across the Parcellian communication network. "It's true. The humans offer equality to all." I, Mazzy, touched hands with the famous Jack Miller. On 12 worlds, beings who had accepted their place in the galactic hierarchy for millennia began to question everything they had been taught. And in the council chamber, the debate raged on about what to do with these humans who simply refused to know their place. 1 month after first contact, the situation had grown more complex. The council ship remained in orbit around Jupiter, a compromised location that allowed frequent travel between Earth and the diplomatic vessel. Jack Miller sat in a small garden area that the aliens had created for the human delegation. It contained plants from dozens of worlds, carefully selected to be safe for humans. He was supposed to be preparing for another meeting, but instead found himself watching a small blue flower that seemed to follow his movements. "It is called a luminary tracker," said a voice behind him. "On my homeworld, they grow in high mountains and follow the sun." Jack turned to see Zixtar standing there. It was rare for the High Ambassador to seek out anyone privately, especially a junior member of the human team. "It's beautiful," Jack said simply. "Thank you for creating this garden for us." Zixtar sat down on a bench designed for their larger frame. "I wish to speak with you away from the formal meetings." Jack nodded, curious but relaxed. In the weeks since the handshake, he had learned that his natural manner was somehow special among the stars, so he made no effort to change it. "Your people continue to refuse protected status," Zixtar said. "This creates difficulties for the Council." "We just want to be treated as equals," Jack replied. "Is that so strange?" "Yes," Zixtar said bluntly. "In all my 12 centuries of life, no new species has ever demanded equality from the beginning. It is not how the galaxy works." Jack shrugged. Maybe the galaxy's been doing it wrong. Instead of being offended, Zixtar made a sound that Jack had learned was laughter. "This is exactly why you are causing such trouble. You question everything without fear." Meanwhile, in the main council chamber, the debate had reached a critical point. Elder Korin was addressing the full assembly. "The humans must be contained before they spread their dangerous ideas further," he insisted. "Already, the Parcellians have demanded full council membership after 4,000 years of proper service. The Krill Federation has refused their annual tribute. 3 more species have requested reclassification." Samantha Gregory, representing Earth at this session, listened carefully. Over the past weeks, she had learned much about galactic politics. She understood now that Earth was the center of what some were calling the Handshake Rebellion. "If I may address the Council," she asked when Korin finished. Xandi, who was chairing the meeting in Zixtar's absence, nodded. Samantha stood, her dark eyes moving around the chamber to connect with each representative. "We understand your concerns about disruption to the established order, but we cannot accept a position of inferiority when we believe all intelligent species deserve equal respect. You destroy thousands of years of tradition," cried Representative Mardix. "Traditions should serve people, not the other way around," Samantha replied calmly. Back in the garden, Zixtar was sharing something important with Jack. "Tomorrow, the Council votes on whether to quarantine Earth completely," the ambassador said. "Some believe your ideas are too dangerous to allow them to spread." Jack's eyes widened. "They can do that. They have done it before," Zixtar said sadly. "Worlds that threaten the stability of the Council can be cut off from all contact, surrounded by warning beacons." "That's awful," Jack said. "What will you vote?" Zixtar was quiet for a long moment. "When you offered me your hand that first day, I felt something I had not experienced in centuries. The simple joy of meeting someone new without judgment. No expectations of deference, no required rituals. Just, hello." The ambassador's 4 hands moved in a complex pattern that the translator didn't interpret. "Your people have made me question much that I thought was certain," Zixtar continued. "That is uncomfortable, but perhaps necessary." On the Parcellian homeworld, something unprecedented was happening. Millions of workers gathered in the central square of the capital city. For the first time in their recorded history, they were refusing to work until their demands were heard. Their leader, Corvin, addressed the crowd. "The humans have shown us that equality is possible. Today, we stand tall like them." Throughout council space, the ripples continued to spread. A revolution had begun with a simple handshake, and tomorrow's vote would determine if it would be allowed to continue. The day of the vote arrived. Tension filled the council chambers as representatives from all 27 member species gathered. The room was arranged in a large circle with seats based on each species' age in the council. The oldest members sat at the front, while newer members were placed toward the back. For this special session, A small observation area had been created for the human delegation. Captain Warren, Samantha Gregory, and Jack Miller sat together, watching the proceedings with growing concern. "This feels like a trial," whispered Captain Warren. "In many ways, it is," Samantha replied softly. "They're deciding our fate." Elder Corin took the central speaking position. His wrinkled, gray face looked stern as he addressed the assembly. "For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained order in our galaxy. New species are guided carefully into maturity. This system has prevented wars, resource conflicts, and the chaos that marked the dark times before the Council's formation." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. "These humans," Corin continued, pointing toward the observation area, "have been in space for less than a century. Yet they refuse guidance. They demand equal status immediately. And worse, they have inspired rebellion among established member worlds." The evidence was displayed on large screens around the chamber. Footage showed protests on 12 worlds. On Parcel, workers had formed a new government. The Krill Federation had opened direct trade negotiations with Earth, bypassing Council protocols. "The vote before us is clear," Corin concluded. "Either Earth must accept its proper place under Council guidance, or it must be quarantined to prevent further disruption." Jack watched as High Ambassador Zixtar rose to speak next. The ambassador had been quiet during their garden conversation about which way they would vote. "I have lived 12 centuries, Zixtar began. "I have witnessed the addition of 11 species to our council. In all that time, I believe our way was the only way." The chamber was completely silent. When the human Jack Miller offered me his hand in greeting, treating me as an equal despite our obvious differences in technology and age, I was shocked. Jack felt all eyes in the room turn to him briefly. "But that shock has led to reflection," Zixtar continued. "Why do we insist that new species spend centuries proving themselves worthy of equality? Is it truly for their benefit, or is it to maintain our own sense of superiority?" Gasps and angry mutters filled the chamber. Elder Corin's face darkened with rage. "The humans have shown us something important," Zixtar said, raising their voice above the noise. "Perhaps respect need not be earned through centuries of submission. Perhaps it can simply be given." On Earth, billions of people watched the proceedings through a live feed. This was humanity's first real look at the Galactic Council in session. In homes, schools, and public squares, humans gathered to witness this pivotal moment. President Alan Dawson sat in the Oval Office, surrounded by advisors. "If they vote for quarantine, what options do we have?" he asked his chief of defense. "Limited, sir," the woman replied honestly. "Their technology far exceeds ours." Back in the council chamber, the debate grew heated. Species that had been in the council for millennia generally supported quarantine. Newer members, inspired by Earth's stance, argued for a new approach. Xandi, the youngest council member, made a passionate speech. "If we vote to cut off Earth, we are saying we fear new ideas. Are we so fragile that one young species can threaten our entire system? If so, perhaps that system needs to change." Jack noticed that several representatives from newer council species were nodding in agreement. As the debate continued, Jack received a message on his tablet. It was from Mazzy, the Persellian worker he had greeted weeks ago. It contained just a few words. "Whatever happens today, you have already changed everything." The time for speeches ended. The vote was about to begin. The future of Earth's relationship with the galaxy hung in the balance. And it had all started with a handshake. 6 months after the fateful vote, Jack Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly built Galactic Cooperation Center in Geneva. The massive building featured architecture that blended styles from 27 different worlds. Outside, the flags of Earth nations flew alongside banners representing Council species. "Taking a moment of quiet before the ceremony?" asked a familiar voice. Jack turned to see Captain Warren, now Admiral Warren, approaching. She wore a new uniform that displayed her elevated rank. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Jack replied. "Sometimes I still can't believe it." "You started quite the revolution with that handshake," she said with a smile. "Who would have thought?" The Council's vote had been remarkably close. In the end, Earth had escaped quarantine by just 2 votes. High Ambassador Zixtar's support had swayed several undecided members. Instead of imposing restrictions, the Council had reluctantly agreed to a 6-month period of open dialogue. That period had led to unprecedented changes throughout galactic society. "They're ready for you downstairs," Admiral Warren said. "It's almost time for the signing." Jack nodded and took one last look at the view. He could see the Swiss mountains in the distance, and closer, a group of Parcellian visitors taking pictures with human tourists. Such a sight would have been unimaginable half a year ago. In the main hall of the center, representatives from 34 species gathered for a historic occasion. The Galactic Council was becoming the Galactic Cooperative, with a new charter that recognized the equal rights of all member species regardless of their technological development or age. Samantha Gregory stood at the main podium, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the cooperative. Beside her stood High Ambassador Zixtar, who had shocked many by supporting the reforms. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," Samantha announced to the assembly. "The Terran Accords establish a framework for interspecies relations based on mutual respect rather than age or technological advancement." Jack found his seat in the audience near President Dawson and other Earth officials. He had requested a transfer back to a smaller diplomatic role after the intensity of the past months. Despite being offered prestigious positions, he preferred working on practical, day-to-day relations between species. "There he is," whispered someone behind Jack. "The human who started it all with a handshake." Jack had become something of a celebrity throughout explored space. His simple gesture was now studied in schools on dozens of worlds. Some conservative species considered him a dangerous radical. Others viewed him as a hero who had broken an outdated system. On the stage, Zixtar stepped forward to speak. "In my 12 centuries of diplomatic service," they announced, "I have learned more about true civilization in these 6 months than in all previous years combined. The humans reminded us of something we had forgotten. That respect freely given is more powerful than respect demanded." The first to sign the new accords was Corvin, now representing the Free Parcellian Alliance. One by one, representatives added their signatures or biological markers to the document. As the ceremony concluded, beings throughout the hall began to greet each other in the human way, extending hands, paws, tentacles, or appendages in the gesture that had changed everything. Matsy, now a junior diplomat from Parcel, approached Jack. "My people have a saying now. Offer your hand like a human. It means to approach others with respect from the beginning." Jack smiled. "My mother would be very proud. She always said a proper handshake shows good character." As the celebration continued around them, Admiral Warren joined Jack again. "Not bad for someone who couldn't follow simple instructions," she said with a smile. Jack watched as across the room, President Dawson shook hands with High Ambassador Zixtar. Around them, dozens of species from across the galaxy were learning the human greeting, reaching out to each other as equals. "You know what's funny?" Jack said quietly. "All I did was what my mom taught me. Be polite, look people in the eye, and offer a firm handshake." Little had he known that such a simple gesture would forever change the course of galactic history.